Meet Rob Nelson, talk show host.
Because you got the 70s thing going there. I got someone's underwear.
Robert Kennedy, thanks for taking a minute. Simple question.
Tucker?
It's good to see you. Listen,
You're a Bitcoin maximalist. You're Bitcoin forever.
I hate this central bank digital currency.
Hey, I don't have all the answers, but together, I know we can find them.
Hey everybody, welcome to Rob Nelson Live. Thanks for tuning in on a Friday night. I know I look a little extra tan. I mean, I am really tan. I've been in Puerto Rico, now I'm in Jacksonville Beach, but I think for whatever reason, my color thing is off a little on my camera right now because I look like Donald Trump. I just got spray tan painted. I didn't actually go get a spray tan. I do look like I did. I actually have like I'm super dark. No, I mean, I'm always in the sun, like, you know, but in any case, I know I'm glowing a little. Speaking of people who are a little, and by the way, I'm going to start having more guests on. I want to start having more guests. I like talking to people, although I love doing these monologues. I love talking to all of you because I don't know, it's kind of therapeutic for me, but I also feel like we're having a conversation. I am going to commit to starting next week to engage in comments and to sort of go with them and wow, everything's talking at me. I was going to try to engage with the comments right now, but I'm afraid I'll do something and screw the whole thing up, and then it'll be a mess. Okay, so I was thinking about this. I was thinking about Kamala Harris today and how, well, especially with the thing about my color, because remember how the whole thing was, she was sort of like, first she was Asian. Well, she identified as an Asian, and then she identified as Black. And she can be both. I want to be clear. You can be Black and Asian. But remember, there's a period where she sort of emphasized the one and then emphasized the other, right? And I get it. Politicians are chameleons. They shift. Not all, but most will shift. All to some degree, but you know, most will just to whatever they have to do or say. But that was a big one. Shift your whole identity for somebody who's all big on identity politics. Or then again, maybe not. Maybe because she's big on identity politics, it makes sense. Like, you know, it's all important which identity she projects. And I never thought too much about it. To be honest, it never like got me wound up, chain around the axle kind of thing. But people did point out, and then people got really wound up that people pointed it out. It's sort of like, well, okay, call a spade, right? Is that a racist statement now? Not that I care, but is it? Fine. Call a white a white. No, there's no white suit. Call a heart a heart. Call a club a club. Is sidebar, why is it called call a spade a spade? I mean, obviously it's about the card, the suit, but in cards, but I guess it's calling the suit. Well, all that for that. Was that she did change what she would identify as. And during the campaign, remember, she would actually change how she talked. I found that fascinating. Like, depending on who she was talking to, she'd say like the same speech. That was also funny because, you could see if you watch clips, she'd say the same speech almost word for word. And she would do it in a way that sounded like it was the first time. And again, I know many politicians repeat speeches. Or at least they were all of them probably repeat parts of speeches. And I used to speak on a lot of stages and things, and I'd often have to say a version of the same thing more than once. But I honestly made a commitment. I made an effort. I tried, like as hard as I could. I tried to say the same idea, but change the way I said it. And sometimes I'd totally change the way I say it. Sometimes I'd partly add something else in. I would notice with her speeches, she'd say them line for line. It was fascinating. It was like an actor. I would be like, she is giving the exact same speech, but and adding the emphasis. Like, and you know what, everybody? It's time now, right? It's time. I mean, for all of us to rise up. I mean, yeah, rise up and start a new movement. And then I'd hear her say the same exact same thing again. Same pauses, same inflections, but in different dialects, depending on who she was talking to. She'd sound more like ghetto if she was talking more ghetto. She'd sound more erudite, depending on that audience. When she was in Pennsylvania, I remember she would sound more working class. It was fascinating to me, like how that's really something. But here's my point about Kamala Harris. She came out, she fascinates me in a different way. She's the only person I've ever seen who like ran a high profile campaign and then like tried to be more high profile in the loss. I mean, I'm old enough to remember like when Governor Michael Dukakis lost to Bush in '88, and he lost because he was a bad candidate, but he'd been a good governor of Massachusetts, and he wanted to look like he was a tough guy, so he rode on a tank, and he had his helmet on. It was a decorative tank thing, and it was so obvious he was like just trying to look like he was tough. Like I'm pro-military, and people just mocked him. Even back then, excuse me, even before social media, you could you could mock the heck out of somebody and humiliate him. And it made him look silly. It made him look like he wasn't strong enough to lead the country militarily. And then we got 9/11. I'm not saying that because we had Bush. I'm just saying, we did have a big military type crisis. But he didn't he didn't stick around after that. Mondale, much earlier, even Jimmy Carter, when he lost his reelection. I mean, Jimmy Carter remained, but he got off the political stage. He just went out and became a humanitarian. The thing about Kamala that's fascinating, you'd think she would. Like, she writes a book about the unique campaign she ran. the 107 days. Like, as if like I lost the campaign because we only had 107 days because it was such a short campaign. And that's remarkable that we did so good in such a short amount of time. Like, okay, I guess, the company went down the tank. But, we didn't have a lot of time, and we definitely did a lot of good in the process. It doesn't really work that way. I mean, you win or you lost. Um, and besides which, I've said before, it's like he had 107 days. You knew you were getting ready for this for the last 2.5 years, and I don't know how much earlier people were actually sitting down talking to you, going, you need to be prepared to possibly be injected in as the candidate. Just like I'm sure they were telling Gavin Newsom, we might need you to do that. That's why he'd go out on his tours, and I'm sure at some level she was thinking. Okay, of course she was thinking about it. I think they were actually talking about it. So I don't really even buy the whole 107 days thing. Like, it really was just 107 days where she had no idea. But that said, she's bragging about it. And, making it sound like she was a really good candidate and they ran a really great campaign and she wants to connect with the people to carry the movement forward. I'm sorry. I don't know if you noticed the movement seems to have gone to the other guy. He's the guy that seemed to have a movement that carried people out in thousands and tens of thousands and moved people and triggered a Charlie Kirk to do what Charlie Kirk did, which created a movement. I don't see the movement that the Kamala Harris campaign created. I see the hype that they put out. I see how they tried to make it that, but I don't see the movement. But here's what she said. This is amazing to me. She basically came out and said, and remember, Tim Walz was the best choice ever at the time, right? Like he was the perfect choice. Perfect, represented America, represented men, represented Midwestern values, was a hunter, was a man's man. Like the guy was anything but a guy's guy, but that's a sidebar. Well, I guess in the gender bender identity wonderment of some of the woke left, he could be considered like a guy's guy. Like Barack Obama could be considered a guy's guy if you want someone like Gavin Newsom definitely could be. I mean, he's a little metro, but that doesn't mean he couldn't be a guy's guy. But Tim Walz, anyway. She said now, though, that the real person she would have picked, this is like the 107 Days book. Like we ran the best campaign, we lost. Here's why the best campaign ever was actually a genius, because it was 107 days. Tim Walz was the best choice ever. However, the real best choice ever, I didn't pick. And that would have been Pete Buttigieg, the transportation secretary, the former mayor of Cincinnati, Columbus, Ohio. And I thought, wow, well, first of all, that's an interesting choice. He wasn't particularly good as a mayor. He wasn't particularly good as an administrator. He wasn't good as a candidate, really, when he ran for president. He was a decent communicator, I'm not going to lie. But either way, she said she couldn't pick him because, he's gay. And I'm like, oh, okay. She couldn't pick him because he's gay and white. And she said he was a great communicator. She said he was the original lead one on her vetting list. And here's why. Because he is, quote, a sincere public servant with the rare talent of being able to frame liberal arguments in a way that makes it possible for conservatives to hear him. Again, I hate to bring it back to Trump. Like, Trump seems to be able to convey arguments that like working class people can relate to. When he's a billionaire and, they typically vote Democrat, he was able to convey arguments that Democrats could lean toward. Not super liberals per se, not at all, not even close. But I mean, overall, he could win some Democrat votes. And he could definitely reach the working class. I mean, his numbers went up in all those categories. His numbers went up with black people. But I didn't see that with Buttigieg. But anyway, that's not the point. That's why he would have been the perfect choice. The reason she didn't pick him, she says, is we were, they're always, it's like a martyr. We were already asking a lot of America to accept a woman, a black woman married to a Jewish man. Just stop and think about that. Self-indulgent, kind of martyry, identity-driven message. You imagine thinking that way, if that is how she thinks? Teaching your kids to think that way? Honey, you go out in the world, and just know you're going to be asking a lot of people to take a chance on you because you're gay or you're black or you're a woman or you have a disability. You're going to have asking a lot of the world. We would be asking a lot of us, America, to accept already a woman. God forbid, a woman. Woo. A woman as president? No, we could never. I'm so sick of that argument. Aren't you tired of it? Oh, well, we didn't pick Hillary. We didn't pick Kamala. Oh, geez. I didn't know there were only 2 women in America who would be considered those that we could choose between. And if there's one woman, I have to choose her no matter what? Just because she's a woman? There's so many qualified women. There's so many women who could be, and women will be president in America. And if you wanted to be a Democrat, then put a Democrat out there that people want to vote for. Don't say they didn't vote for her because she was a woman. That was such a tiring argument. People weren't going to vote for Donald Trump, I thought, according to everybody, because he was a felon, because he was a misogynist, because he said, grab him by the pussy, because he treated women badly. I'm not saying he did all these things. He did say grab him by the pussy. And he was convicted as a felon, although I don't think what he was convicted of, he should have been, but he still was convicted. He was all these bad things. He was a demagogue. He was a monster. He was going to destroy democracy. He was a lot of bad things. He was going to do a lot of bad things, but he was a lot of bad things. And because of that, we wouldn't elect him. That was Joe Biden's argument. And Joe Biden won. Now, I'm not going to get into whether they cheated. And I don't believe they cheated. I do believe the system is always messed with. And I do think there's cheating. I believe there's probably cheating on both sides. But the system was kind of rigged in their favor. And they certainly maximized that. And they certainly used stay-at-home voting and mail-in voting. And they certainly used keep Joe Biden in the basement, and it's COVID and no one can go out, to make sure you couldn't do the Trump effect, which Trump was trying to do. And you certainly tried to roll Biden out there. People would have been like, oh, my God, now I see it. Instead, they had to wait 4 more years. Yeah, it's like the Wizard of Oz. Woo, woo, woo. If he actually came out, you'd be like, that dude? But yet she says, we the people wouldn't accept a woman. It's her first word, a black woman. A black woman married to a Jewish man. Again, I find that very statement offensive, but I also find it sad and pathetic if you really think that. If you really think the reason you didn't get elected was because you were a woman, a black woman, and a black woman married to a Jewish man. Huh. I hate to point out that a big part of the far left side of your party, Kamala, which is the progressive woke, which seems to be driving a lot of your agenda and has a number of members in Congress, women members of Congress that are younger and very progressive and very left. I wonder if you know that a lot of them seem to be a little anti-Semitic. Yeah. Or they at least sound anti-Semitic, I mean, some of them outright are, Congressman, I was going to name wrong. Talia Rajib, I'm just messed that name up. The Muslim congresswoman from Minnesota, from Michigan. But, I'm sorry, like, that's not why we didn't elect you. But if that's what you think, ugh, okay. But anyway, here's the end of this. And it's funny because the Jewish part, but so many people, you know, are anti-Semitic or certainly appear that way, chanting from the river to the sea, who were going to vote for Kamala Harris. She wanted to say, screw it, let's just do it. Well, let's just go do it. Yeah, she wanted to be bold and decisive and make a powerful statement. But knowing what was at stake, not because I'm a wuss, not because I'm a pussy and I just didn't man up or woman up and do it. Not because of that. I was gonna make a statement. I was gonna make a bold statement. I really was. Yeah. Come on, bring it on. But knowing what was at stake, oh, here we go. But knowing what was at stake, it was too big of a risk. That reminds me of like a friend of mine, Heath Denoya, who was a like featherweight world champion boxer, three times over, fantastic boxer, little guy. Little guy, but you don't want to mess with him. Actually, I can't fight very well. I can't fight at all. He tried to teach me how to box, and he said he could teach me. And after like a couple lessons, he was like, "Wow, you really don't know how to fight." Like he's like, almost like you have no fighting instinct. But this guy, he was like he would just see. That shows you how I don't know how to fight. He was like electrically fast, little, and just apparently just like pop, 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 pow, and little but hot, but fierce and. He knock everybody out. He couldn't knock a big guy out in a ring, but he knocked all the guys his own size out over and over again. 3-time world featherweight champion. He told me a story going to bars, and he had a very beautiful wife, and he still does. And guys might hit on her or say things or be inappropriate. And he wasn't like a freak about it. But if somebody did something inappropriate, he'd step up and be like, hey, dude, back off, enough, go home, go away, do whatever, you're drunk. Back away from my lady. And they don't know who he is. And they would want to fight him. And he's a little guy. And they were often big guys. And they'd want to fight him. And they'd be like, all tough and we're going to fight. Let's go. Come on, I'll show you. Like, I'll humiliate you in front of your girl. Let's go outside. We'll see what happens. And he would look at them and say, my hands are like lethal weapons. And therefore, I won't. Like they're registered that way. I won't hit you first. But if you want, you hit me first. And once you hit me, it'll be the last thing you do. You'll be on the ground and in the hospital. And I said, did anyone ever hit you? He's like, never. And I said, if they did, then would you been in trouble? He's like, no. If you're not a professional fighter, no. He's like, there's nobody who's not a professional fighter I couldn't put on the ground, especially if they've been drinking. But like, just in general, no, if you were a professional fighter, yeah, that's why you'd be good in your class. It's kind of like, it's kind of like women athletes, good in their class, bring the guy in who wants to be a woman. He's good in their class, but he's not good in his own class. It's sad, kind of the inverse of that. That makes sense. But what he said is they'd walk away. And often they'd taunt him as they walked away. Lucky for you, man. Lucky for you. This is your lucky day. And he just said he laughed. Like, tell yourself what you want. Like, of course, they don't think that. They were scared he might be right. Well, that's a long way to say Kamala Harris was like, I was going to say, let's do it. But knowing what was at stake, it was too big of a risk. Yeah. Well, I could have gotten Pete, but you know what? Too big a risk because you guys wouldn't have taken him because he was gay man, and I'm a woman, a black woman married to a Jewish man. So, that combo, you guys were too scared. Wow. She blames everything. It's everybody else's fault to these people, except their own. And I think Pete knew that too, she says, to our mutual sadness. So I want to go have a pity party right now. I thought the risk was Donald Trump would destroy America and democracy. I thought that's what the risk was. I didn't think the risk was he might not get elected. I thought the risk was Donald Trump. So at all costs, if this guy would be better at beating Donald Trump, bring him on board and trust that the voters will see that because the risk is so great if Donald Trump wins. Don't tell me you were afraid to take the risk because it was too big a risk. People wouldn't vote for him, and Donald Trump was too big a risk. So I took another guy who would be way worse, and we lost, and you were way worse. You should have stepped down and put somebody better in your place if it was such a big risk that Donald Trump's going to destroy America. If you believe that shit, you should have made sure, all of you should have made sure you had the best candidates possible. I was going to use the F-bomb. Best candidates possible out there. If it was that big a risk, I'll talk. But here's the part that cracks me up and is a little funny. It cracks me up that this is identity politics. I'll give you credit for consistency. Like, the identity politics is so big that even in your own decisions of moving forward, you're using identity politics as a basis for what to do and as a basis for what not to do. It's like, I thought the diversity was essential, so you're going to seek it out. But yet, all that diversity would be a risk. We couldn't put it on the ticket. Had to have one white straight guy on the ticket to balance the woman who's black and married to a Jewish man. But isn't it all about adding all the identities in no matter what? It's so hypocritical, which leads me to, and I have a few minutes left here, which leads me to Jimmy Kimmel. Well, actually, I'm going to do a little on Jimmy Kimmel, and then I want to talk about Charlie Kirk for a minute. I've been watching this whole thing with Jimmy Kimmel and how everybody's like up in arms on the left that he's been let go. Now, I want to say right up front, it is, well, I'll say it as a qualifier after. People are out of control. First was Colbert, then CBS, the suit, NBC, and dropped the guy on MSNBC, and NBC did something else too. I don't remember what it was. And then Jimmy Kimmel, so Alex Edelman, a comedian, writes, "This is the actual cancel culture everyone claims to hate so much." Okay. This isn't right, Ben Stiller wrote. Here goes Brian Stelter. Oh, Mr. CNN. America is who seem to always forget to cover the things that were bad about Biden and bad about the left and bad about the lies about COVID, but claim to be the media guy, looking at all sides. America is a less free place if late night comedians cannot do or say what they want. People can change the channel. That's how we vote. That's how we have our say in America. But this really does have a chilling effect across America. Chris Hayes from MSNBC called it the latest chapter in Donald Trump's attempt to crack down on free speech, dominate the media, render the First Amendment meaningless. It's the most straightforward attack on free speech from state actors that he has ever seen. All right, here's where I draw the line. I think Donald Trump is trying to limit speech. By the way, you guys started this. You guys tried to limit speech for the last 5 years, everywhere, on every channel, on every outlet, on every publication, on every social platform. You did it. You did it with the press. You did it in collusion with the government and with the tech platforms. I do think Donald Trump is both reacting to what you did, trying to go after the anti-conservatives who shut conservatives down, and he's using that bully personality to do it. I don't think he wants free speech dead, but I don't know, maybe he does. He's now rendering the First Amendment meaningless. Now you're just getting out of hand. You guys rendered the First Amendment meaningless when you censored people from talking during the COVID. By the way, ABC Disney fired Gina, the Mandalorian star, for making a statement that comparing the way people who weren't vaccinated were treated to how people treated Jews in Nazi Germany. I mean, Gina Carano. Seriously? You fired her for that? Same company. Where was the outrage at that? Oh, no, that was good because she was a Nazi. She was a hate monger for saying that. even though she was actually saying the opposite, right? She was saying the hate mongers who treated Jews a certain way, that's how it feels. We're treating the unvaccinated like they're the Jews. So we're the hate mongers, all of us over here in we're pro-vax class. It's bizarre. But to call it an attack from state actors, I want to be clear, and maybe people have just gotten really dumb. Maybe these people in the media are really dumb. It wasn't a state actor acting. It was a private company. I was bothered at the Gino Carino firing. I was bothered at a lot of media outlets dropping people for saying things they said. ESPN was doing it. ESPN did it numerous times. And people would come out and talk about it. Like I said this and boom, suddenly I was done. But to say it's a state actor, there's a difference. And yes, you can have the caveat, but Donald Trump was putting pressure on them. Okay, sure. But there's not a lot he can do. He can sue them, and he can have the FCC and look into their licenses, which the FCC commissioner said, maybe we should. He did. He said, we said, don't make us do this the hard way. But at certain points, stop and realize what? They can't literally yank the ABC's license just like that, just because they want to. Oh, you'd go, yes, they can. They actually can't. I mean, they'd get sued and lose. But they even wouldn't. I mean, are they trying to strong arm a little? Yes. Do they feel these? I think they really feel the news divisions have been so imbalanced and unfair. And by the way, the news divisions aren't actually required to be fair in content. It's too bad. They're merely required to give equal time to candidates of both sides. There's, if you give one candidate, you got to give the other candidate equal time. It's the equal time doctrine. It's all confusing. They used to have the fairness doctrine, then they changed it. It applies differently to news outlets as it does to non-news outlets. If you're a non-news outlet, you have to give candidates equal time. If you're a news outlet, you don't. It's bizarre. It's all messed up. But either way, Jimmy Kimmel, it was not the government. All I want to say here, regardless of whether you think he should have been canceled, regardless of even whether there was an implied pressure, ABC made its own decision. Jimmy Kimmel wasn't making money. These companies are cleaning up on content that isn't working, and maybe they're using the excuse, but they are free agents to stand up and not do it. Yet the one time we've seen state actors acting was during COVID, where we saw the state actually act to shut people down, coordinate shutting them down, and effectively do it. Coordinate with media outlets, coordinate with social platforms. But here's the other thing. There is a difference, because what we saw happening during that time was people were being canceled off social platforms. Those are open use platforms. Those are not companies hiring you. And they would take people off one after the other who said things that the government said they shouldn't be able to say. That was collusion, and that was state actors acting through an entity. That's different than ABC or ESPN or any outlet firing people because they don't like what they're saying, whatever the reason they decided they don't like it. It may be abhorrent. It's not the death of free speech. It's how commercial content works. It's very different when you do it on a social platform where everybody is allowed to use that platform so long as they don't violate the terms of use. And then to claim they're violating the terms of use whenever they say something you don't like or something you've been told you're not supposed to allow them to say, that is a different story. That is killing free speech. Taking Jimmy Kimmel and Stephen Colbert off the air is not killing free speech. There'll be plenty more. There are plenty more. Okay. I want to leave it there, but I'm going to just add one more thing because it's been on my mind. AOC made a comment on the floor of the House during the resolution, which she voted against to condemn the death of Charlie Kirk. I'm not saying this from a partisan point of view, a political point of view, a pro-Charlie Kirk point of view. Why wouldn't you condemn the death of him? And she said, well, I do condemn the death. But, and then she went on to say, and this is just really what got me. She went on to say, She called him uneducated and ignorant. She said she condemns the murder, but the resolution brings pain to the millions of Americans who endured segregation, Jim Crow, and the legacy of bigotry today. Really? Wow. And then she called him ignorant and uneducated. First of all, he was a fan of civil rights when they happened for Black people in voting. He wasn't a fan of how it got used. But everything he said has been distorted. And I'm not saying everything he said was right or everything I said I agreed with. But I looked and thought, she's calling him uneducated and ignorant. Yet if you watch him, was very educated, self-educated too. He was so well read, but he was also he was so not ignorant. He was knew so much and so good at engaging in discourse and dialogue and debate. Yet AOC, you could argue, often appears uneducated and ignorant. So what I thought was, it's not pot calling the kettle black. Once again, a Black reference, don't get me canceled. What I thought was, it's funny, it's kind of like that mirror spell in Harry Potter. You look in the mirror, careful what gets out there, it'll come back at you. It's like, I wish people like this could see, and it comes from, both sides have done this at different times, but right now it really is much more coming from the left. This putting these things out, and then they come back, even canceling things. They come back, they reflect back on you, and then you suddenly feel the pain and you're horrified. It's like a boomerang, but it's also like a projection. It's like you're pushing out the need for violence, stop them at all costs, and then that comes back, boom, 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 boom. And it's like, at a certain point, it's going to absorb you and destroy you back. So if you really love yourself, your family, your future, your country, your values, the thing you want to live and grow, it's like you can't put the napalm out there and expect your grass to survive. Funny analogy, but it's the best one I got. I'm out of time. It's Rob Nelson Live. Thanks for watching. I'll see you all on Monday again, 8 p.m. Eastern.
Meet Rob Nelson, talk show host.
Because you got the 70s thing going there. I got someone's underwear.
Robert Kennedy, thanks for taking a minute. Simple question.
Tucker?
It's good to see you. Listen,
If you're a Bitcoin maximalist, you're Bitcoin forever.
I hate this central bank digital currency.
Hey, I don't have all the answers, but together, I know we can find them.